Thank you. Cool, yeah, I'm the webmaster at begin.com. I want to bring that back, so I'm proudly saying I'm a webmaster. I regrettably created a website a long time ago making fun of JavaScript, and then I started using it a lot, and then I had the huge honor of meeting Brendan Ike, and he was like, wait a second, you that WTF.js guy? Oh no. Among other things I regret doing, I created a thing called PhoneGap back in the day, and that went over to Adobe, and I stewarded the open sourcing of it at Apache. But that's old history. Don't care about that stuff anymore. In 2014, Amazon changed the model for compute. They said, we're going to bill you in 100 millisecond increments, and that absolutely changed everything about how we think about architecting the apps. And to me, this is getting a bit overshadowed. The term's getting a bit watery these days, so I really want to bring it back to functions, and I want to talk mostly about functions. A lot of things are coming under the serverless umbrella these days, and that's totally cool. But the most important part about this is that the function is the unit of deployment, not your entire application, and this opens up a whole bunch of possibilities. Another piece of this is we're using this term cloud native, but I think if we're talking about cloud native functions, we'd be talking about Lambda, we'd be talking about Azure functions. We wouldn't be talking about building a container solution that abstracts and runs functions on top of it. So I just want to be clear about that. It's almost as bad as putting your whole app in one function. And I know because it's the first thing I did. It's like, oh sweet, I get this infinite scaling thing, I'm gonna drop an Express app in here, and it totally works for Hello World. But the problem with these functions is they're containers themselves, and when you put stuff in there, you're basically building up cold start penalty. The bigger your function, the longer it's gonna take to cold start. And so if you take a monolith and you put that in a function, that's the fastest it's ever going to be. And as you add more code, it's gonna get slower and slower. People say that you can solve this with a solution called Lambda warmers, where you're pinging your Lambda to keep it alive. This doesn't solve the problem, this just changes the probability of seeing that problem. And so your customers are still gonna get a bad cold start, or worse, your CEO. And so this isn't the right way to do this. It's kind of swimming upstream. Functions as a service have a whole bunch of characteristics that we've already talked about way too much today. So I'm gonna breeze this stuff real fast. You only pay for what you use, sweet. Focus on business value, awesome. Better lead times to production. This is a big deal, that's nice. Better security model, there's no ports to scan. This is just like a quick millisecond slice of compute and it goes away, and that's really nice from a security standpoint. So of all the things that are now calling themselves serverless, it kind of doesn't matter. Functions are still best in class. You get fixed costs, you get faster iterations, and you get better security. But the thing I really care about is that these things are super fast to deploy. And this is really what my talk's gonna be about. And what I want to focus on is how I've been doing that with an open source project called Arc. Really quickly, is anyone here deploying Lambdas to production today? Oh, we have a lot of serverless curious. That's great. What about Azure? Okay, cool. GCP? Okay, interesting. Alibaba Cloud. You laugh, but they just had one of the biggest cloud conferences in the world last week, 60,000 attendees. And I think this space is still pretty new, and we don't know who all the players are yet. Anyway, so what's Arc? Arc is a cloud functions-based Lambda first-class solution for building apps. It's vanilla node. It actually can run as an HTTP server, so if you're feeling like you want to run an app in a container platform because you want to be retro and get all those benefits of monoliths, you could do that. And it's just a mono repo of independent functions. So you can imagine it's an application. It's got this holistic concept of an app, but it's just a whole bunch of little tiny functions at the end of the day. And one thing that sets it apart is it's openly governed. So Arc is a project at the JSF, which is a subsidiary of the Linux Foundation, which is a nice way of saying it's not just open source code, it's open governance, so anyone can participate. What Arc is not is also important. Arc is not Docker, it's not Kubernetes, it's not VMs, there's no server metaphors. When you think about it for a second, why are we talking about servers anyways? That was a metaphor for a physical rack, which we then turned into a metaphor for a virtual machine. This doesn't actually serve us in our architecture. saying I'm going to create a package JSON, and I'm going to npm install architect workflows. This will take a few seconds as npm does what it does. Arc's pretty small, but this dependency tree is pretty deep. I know someone out there wants me to use Yarn. I know you're gonna. I know. Okay, so we've got nothing in here. I'm gonna touch a .arc file, and I'm gonna edit it. So Arc defines a manifest format. All these serverless solutions define a manifest format. Most of them use YAML. Arc does not. Arc can use YAML. I added support just to shut people up, but. So there's no deep nesting. This file is pretty readable. If you look at it, you can see that we've got an app namespace, and so anything that this manifest generates will be namespaced font18. And then we define a single route, which we will then turn into a function. So I'm going to run npx create. npx is, that was weird formatting from blowing up my terminal. npx is a tool npm recently shipped that allows you to call binaries inside your node modules. And so we've got a create function. It's going to read that Arc file, and it's going to do a whole bunch of stuff. This is the longest part of the presentation. So we're generating 2 API gateways, one for staging, one for production. We're generating Lambda functions for this route. We're generating, oh, it did it. So let's take a look at it. Whoa, wait. That couldn't have been it. Oh, did I just deploy my own presentation somehow? Oh, you know what I did? That is so funny. I think I already had a font18. Well, I don't want to overwrite the presentation and staging. Or do I? Maybe I do. Okay, so this is ostensibly what we were deploying. I'm just going to quickly deploy this and see if this is doing what I think it's doing. Yeah, that's what I expected to see. This stuff is so fast, you can just screw things up so quickly. It's unbelievable. Okay, so I'm gonna try this again, but I'm gonna make a directory fun19. Let's just get ahead of ourselves. I don't know what else to do here. We're in the future. I love it. I'm gonna npm install. I'm gonna actually do this to my local copy of Arc workflows so that we don't have to wait for npm to get its shit together. How did they even make that slow? Okay, fine. Let's just play nice. Oh, I know why, because I didn't run npm init. Didn't have a package JSON. Live coding, people. Here we go. Okay. This time, I'm going to call app fun19, because why not? Okay, let's generate that. That looks better. Okay, so it's generating local code, it's generating remote code, it's generating sessions tables in DynamoDB, it's generating 2 API gateway instances, it's creating an IAM role, and it's wiring all this shit up together, and ostensibly we're going to have an app on the other side. Provisioning is a little slow, and I know Chris Munns is in the audience, so up them rate limits for me, man. I want faster provisioning. API gateway is basically my bottleneck. I can create 1 API gateway a minute, and then I figured out that I have Amazon Orgs account, and so I was like, oh, I could just create 10 accounts, and then I could create 10 apps a minute, and we have gone down that road now, and it's its own special hell that if you want to talk about that, there's definitely drinks involved. Okay, so Hello World's here. We did it, finally. Thank you. let's modify hello world, and well, let's take a look at it first. So when we initially got involved in this whole serverless business, we had built an Express app that we had turned into a functions thing. That kind of fell apart, but we kept most of the interface so that it was familiar. So hi functions friends, and let's just deploy that. Oops. So the commands are kind of what you would expect: create, deploy, whatever. So 1.9 seconds to get to staging is reasonable. I'm okay with that. I think it could be better. Chris, months at Amazon. So what this didn't do is it didn't upgrade my production app though. So I'm going to do that. And so we made this a little bit goofy. You got to type this ugly environment variable arc deploy and then npx deploy. People are like, why did you do it with an environment variable like that? And I did it because it's a little hard to type so that you think about it. That's all. It's really the only reason why. Because this stuff is fast, and so this is interesting, but it's just like a hello world. So like, why don't we do something a little nicer? I don't know. We can take a look at that arc file again. Let's add. I don't know. How about get login, post login? If we're going to do that, we have to log out. And yes, I know you shouldn't do a get for logout, but it's a demo. It's a demo. So arc is indemnifant. It reads this arc file. It sees what already exists. If something's already there, it doesn't try and recreate it. It just skips. If it sees something that doesn't yet exist, it'll generate that. So it's safe to run. And you can run it as much as you want. It'll be pretty boring if you do. So once this is done its business, we're going to have a few pages, but I have a problem with what we've got already set up. These URLs are pretty gross. I don't know how well you can see that. This is sort of the default Amazon execution URL that you get. And they're sort of got this folder path for whether it's production or staging. And that's totally cool, but it's hard to read, and it's kind of awkward. So we'll set up some DNS, and we'll crunch that down into like a short little piece. Probably should have done these one at a time, so it didn't take forever. Now I got to fill the time with my dazzling commentary. This is sort of the neat thing about serverless, though, is a lot of time spent not doing things that you used to have to do. And it's really hard to pitch something on like, you don't have to do that anymore, but you kind of don't have to do that anymore. So we've got our staging thing, and I guess now we have a login route, which says hello world, so that's not that great. And weirdly now log out will also say hello world. So let's add some logic to that. But first, why don't we add a domain so I don't have to look at this anymore. Brian.io. So if you're setting up a domain, you add it in the arc file under domain, then you run npx DNS. And this is going to generate a certificate request in ACM in US East 1. And there it is. And so the way this works is Amazon doesn't know I'm me for some reason. So I need to put these values in my DNS provider so that they can know that I am actually me. And then they can issue me a cert. And if that sounds confusing, then it's because it is. It's DNS, and actually this is the easiest I've ever seen DNS, which says a lot. So this is Route 53, if you're not familiar with it, and I'm just adding these C names so that we can verify that I am me. And in like a magical 5 to 10 minutes, this cert will be issued, and then we can create a domain mapping for our domain. While we're waiting for that magic to happen, and you can just rerun npx DNS as much as you want, but you'll see it's like, no, you're not verified right now. So we'll let Amazon do its magic, and we'll jump back over here. And so if we refresh, you'll notice the arc file begins to kind of reflect the structure of your application. Everything is very findable at a glance. So I'm going to go into get login. I'm going to dazzle you with my HTML skills. So I'm going to create, I'm just going to be that guy. I'm just going to make a messy form. So this form needs to post to log in. But we've got those big ugly URLs, so it actually would need to go to like either /staging login or production, but I don't want to do that. And Arc has a helper, which you can get rid of once you set up DNS, but this will just do the right thing. So that's going to do a post, and we'll put an input in for my email. And my security practices are pretty weak, so we'll just do that. Maybe we'll add a button, just 'cause. Right? So I could just deploy that one function, or I can just, whoops, I don't want to create, I want to deploy. I can just deploy them all. So 4 lambdas on this Wi-Fi cost me 4 seconds, which is pretty nice iteration speed. You can see it's now printing this domain down here, but I don't know if that's not actually set up yet. So let's just quickly check, see where our DNS is at. Oh, cool, our cert's verified. And so this will take a second also. And running npx DNS just caught the fact that that cert was verified. So it's now going to generate 2 CloudFront distributions with that cert. So I'll be able to map that back to my domain name. And now I've got CloudFront distributions in front of my Lambda functions, and Bob's my uncle. So if we go back over to that form I created, you can see my HTML skills. It kind of doesn't matter what I do here because it's just going to post back to home. That's not very exciting. This little buddy's still running. So I'm going to create another tab while that does, oh, did it finish? It did. Cool, we got 2 distribution domains. So we got a staging and a production. We're going to take those, and if we're lucky and I'm fast, this should all propagate before this talk is over, which is kind of remarkable. Oh my God, this new Mac. The keys are so bad. They're so bad. It's embarrassing. fun19.brian.io. Everyone's like, is he actually editing his DNS? Yeah. I am. I made sure I deleted all the weird shit I did with it before. I mean, everyone's done that. It's a thing. You go drinking. You buy a domain. Seemed like a good idea at the time. It auto-renews, and you're like, fuck. Can't believe I got that domain still. Okay, so we're posting to this route, and we need to see if we're logged in. So we'll do like a let's do let logged in equals request.body.name equals brian@begin.com. This is a demo. This isn't how you should implement auth. I'm just really trying to show you how session works. And so session gets written and read every request from DynamoDB, so it's lightning fast. It doesn't even touch the latency. Dynamo is an amazing database. It has all the guarantees that I've always wanted out of a database, and so I'm pretty enamored with it. So what we're doing here is we're just checking to see if that value is my email. And if it is, cool, you're logged in. This won't really look like anything unless we do something with that knowledge. So hello functions friends, and we'll just put request.session log in here. Cool. Let's deploy that. And you can kind of see that you get this, what's up with that? Oh, you know what it is? I have a cron that runs on the hour, and this is my crummy Mac trying to survive it. Okay, so that was an embarrassingly slow deploy. I'm gonna do this again. 6 seconds. Come on. All right, that's better. It's not great, but it's better. Okay, so if we go back to this, logged in's undefined. That makes sense. That's kind of what we would expect. And if I go to log in, I put in Brian at begin.com, this should. Interesting. I wonder how I managed to do that. Did I name it? Oh, I probably named it email, didn't I? If I go back to my post login, it's looking for request.body.name, but in get login, I named it email. So yeah, that would be why. Great. Maybe I don't want to just deploy everything all the time for whatever reason. So you can just deploy one, shave off 2 seconds of that deploy. Feeling really productive now. Game changer. Okay, so back on my login, let's see. Brian, at begin.com. We logged in. So session state, staging production environments. Let's see how that DNS is working out for us. Actually, wait, don't do it with your computer. Don't do it. Because once you do, it's going to cache everywhere. And was it fun19.brian.io? Yeah, see? That would have bit me. Oh, it might be cool to do here. Oh no. I'll never be able to load that tab again. Okay, well, that's fine. We don't have to show the DNS. It'll probably resolve the minute I finish my talk. I think how am I doing on time right now? Oh, excellent. Okay, good. So I have a few more slides to show. So that's pretty fun. You can really start seeing how this is a much faster development workflow, how you get a lot more out of the box. This isn't stuff that is totally native only to Arc. You can probably achieve most of this with enough YAML using other solutions. I think right now we're at an incremental adopt standpoint. I don't think that this is like a wholesale, let's just move the farm over. When we initially built out Arc, we were building the first version of begin.com, and it was a bot. And we had extreme real-time requirements because it's a bot. And this is sort of what led us down this path of avoiding cold starts and building something that was a lot quicker. If I were to travel back in time, I'm not totally sure I would have just jumped into serverless in 2015 like I did. But I think we're at a point now when we can definitely start building out new, smaller apps and see what that migration looks like. I also think some of this stuff needs to be solved with patience. I know a lot of vendors here are claiming multi-cloud, and I'm certain that they have some form of that, but when it comes to the function story, Amazon has a huge head start right now on cold starts, and this is crucial if you want a hot path stuff. So I think we can solve that one with a little bit of patience. For the moment, I'm just going to choose fast by default, and I'm quite happy with that. And another thing I want to throw out there is there's a lot of this is the right way or that's the right way, and I don't think that this is helpful. I think a lot of people are getting a ton of value out of building their architectures their way. And so there isn't really a singular right way to do things. There's really just one wrong way, and that's Java or Ruby. And anyway, so I had to. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I had to. So you can get involved. Pull requests are nice. Everyone seems to think that this is how you help in open source, and it's absolutely not the case. Bug reports are contributing in open source, and we really appreciate them, so don't be bummed to do it. Feature requests are totally cool. Like, tell me about your use cases. I'm interested. We're building weird shit here. Let's make it weirder. And share what you're learning. You know, get out there. That's also contributing to open source. Open source isn't just slinging code. I'm not quite done, but this is my thank you slide. So, you know, hold off on the excitement. We have beta for the new begin.com, which I'm going to really quickly show you. So I hate being pitchy, and I'm not a pitchy person. Begin's a hosted version of Arc where it runs on our Amazon. So we use AWS org accounts, and so these apps are completely isolated apps. And we kind of fixed the speed on the provisioning part. So that just generated a new app. It's propagating my GitHub right now. Once this GitHub is fully propagated with this Arc app, it's going to kick up a CI here, and it's fast. So this is walking through the package JSON. It's installing the node modules, which is our slowest step. It's running lint, it's running some tests, and it just deployed to staging. Right here. Cool. So we could edit that on GitHub. You'll notice no Amazon accounts. Hi, friends. So we'll commit that change. Our goal is to be sub 10 seconds, and I think we can do it for a full CI run. So Arc runs offline and locally as a little HTTP server, and it has its own in-memory database that marks out DynamoDB. So the tests are extremely fast, and because it's got the Cloud Functions characteristics, the deployments are also pretty fast. So that was a deploy to staging. Hi, friends. Cool. So let's do a deploy to production. We'll bump the major. Whee! This is kind of our style. So commits to master, go straight to staging. Commits to production, it's tags on production, go to production. And yeah, it'll build that to production. So that's begin.com. If you're curious, we're in beta. We're just getting started. We pivoted into this about 4 months ago. That's the last time I had a good night's sleep. And it's getting there. We're pretty proud of where we've arrived. So I don't know which one of these goddamn tabs is my thing. There we go. Yeah, check out Arc at Arc repos, star us, send a pull request, whatever. The Quickstart Guides are at arc.codes if you're interested in checking out the open source project. And if you're stoked on what you just saw, sign up for our beta at begin.com. Thanks.